There's a particular advantage you can get on champions like Riven and Pantheon when interacting with Hextech gates in a certain way. This interaction allows both of these two champions to be able to almost instantly be teleported to the blue side fountain. Spearshot, a popular League content creator, seems to utilize this bug quite frequently, but it is also utilized by other somewhat prominent personalities within the League scene, such as Zach, a North American challenger Riven one-trick. He, for example, has shown using this quote mechanic, as he quotes, in a ranked game to attempt to backdoor against the enemy team, which could have legitimately pulled off an easy win that the enemy team couldn't really counterplay around if something important happened on the map, such as a fight on Baron or Dragon. Being on the enemy team in this case and losing against such a quote mechanic would be incredibly frustrating, simply because it would have been unfair. In the book Developing Online Games, an Insider's Guide, which discusses what it takes to successfully design, develop and manage an online game, defines cheating as to use a bug, exploit or hack for one's personal gain, while an exploit is defined as to use a bug or a loophole in the game for one's personal gain. By definition, both Spearshot and Zank would be guilty of cheating in League of Legends by using this exploit, but an incredibly vast majority of people defend Spearshot's actions for various reasons. It saves like 5 seconds of extra recall time. Also, it's insanely common as you want to E into portal in the enemy base so they can't stop you by damaging you. He's literally doing it for stream content, nothing else. You are retarded. It literally saves like 8 seconds. He could do the same thing with E and use the gate normally, and that's in the game and not a bug. What do you want him to do there? It's not like he's using a third party or something, it's a part of the game. Go tell Riot to fix this if it concerns you. It's 7 months old, it's a feature. It's a feature, it's a feature. Now usually I don't really care about all of this stuff, but the fact that there was a huge public outcry of people defending Spearshot for using this bug into what I would argue gives him a substantial advantage is a bit shocking. I honestly do believe that this is an indefensible hill. I am a huge fan of Spearshot and I don't really care that much about this, and I mean this is just a video game stuff, but you know, just don't sugarcoat it and call it a feature. Essentially, what I'm trying to say is that Spearshot is basically abusing this exploit to gain a substantial advantage, which in turn would constitute him cheating. If he did it once for streaming, it's really whatever, but he's done it multiple times and it's not like he's hiding it. He's posting about it frequently on short form platforms, and doing it numerous times would constitute abuse of an exploit, which I personally think it gets to a point where it's the very least a bit concerning for competitive integrity and fairness, especially in the elo he's playing at. But the question is it really exploiting, is it cheating, and is it abusing an exploit? So the Steelman argument of Spearshot's side would essentially be that the rules of a game allows them to do this Hextech exploit, and as such Spearshot might not know if they are actually behaving against the designer's intention. So by having this view, the users of these bugs will not be really called cheats, as the game isn't really changed, it's simply played by its own game code, and alt players who know of the bug can use it. Of course, most games nowadays doesn't allow this to be the case in their terms of service or code of conduct, but still this would be the way to get developers to update their games, as by abusing exploits there would be a higher need for eliminating said exploits due to a great quantity of complaints. There is of course more nuance to exploits, nothing is really black and white. For instance, about a year ago Hextech Labs revealed that Draven could execute himself if he had more passive stacks than he had health by using his ultimate. After having a lower health points amount than his stacks, Draven could ult, and upon the ult returning to him it would just kill him. It will also grant him the gold from the stacks. It requires a bit more conditions though. You would need to stand near an enemy unit and you wouldn't get the full stack amount. In fact, you would only get about 75% of the total gold in your stacks. This exploit is a bit funny but largely harmless, since the personal gain you get is almost negligible with that 75% reduction in gold caching. And as well as normal Draven stacks would be somewhere around 100 to 400, which means that by dying by your own hand would be more harmful to you than the personal gain you get from doing this exploit. And this bug is also not consistent, so doing it would just risk you of griefing yourself. But obviously this is not really intended. Nowhere in Draven's tooltip or explanation of his abilities is there where he is supposed to die from his R returning, but it is within the game code, so the question is there really an intention here? And I would just argue that it's simply a case of no. There is nothing that really indicates that this is the intention. I mean, it's an unintended interaction that's occurring with all of these complex systems that's playing around, and by systems I mean game code. However, bugs within the League can get incredibly crazy, such as Syndra simply picking up Baron, Poppy using her Q could deal global damage to everyone, absolutely zero cooldowns on your spells, Nico turning into the fountain turret and obliterating anything in her path, or Lee Sin going invincible for 50 seconds. All of these bugs have something in common. They are absolutely and utterly game-breaking. They quite literally can and do ruin games, and it's incredibly unfair for other players who are not able to replicate the bug simply because they lack the knowledge or don't have the right conditions to do the bug, such as, you know, being the same champion as Nico to do the fountain bug. While most of these bugs were fixed relatively fast, where even champions got outright disabled due to these game-breaking bugs, others weren't. The leaguelising Q bug apparently existed in the game since its release. On February 15th of 2017, the Lee Sin's Reddit forum revealed that he could go invisible when casting his Q. The conditions for this requires Lee Sin to Q dash into a target that is knocked up during a specific time window, and this knocking up thing could be done with his own ultimate. One could not see Lee Sin for some time even when he was attacking you or casting his abilities. The only question I have to drag in here is, was this bug intended or unintended, considering that it stayed in game since his release and at least up until 2017? Well, the obvious answer would be no, but why? Why is it no? We've got to look at intention. Did Riot Games intend that Lee Sin should go invisible during his Q while having a target knocked up? We can't really know for certain at the time, as the devs wouldn't have communicated it, at least for some time, but intent can be seen elsewhere by just looking at the champion abilities description. Nowhere in Lee Sin's kit does it show, hint, or dictate that he will go invisible under certain circumstances, meaning that there is no intent designed for him to go invisible and kill anything he wants during this time, I guess. And if we look at the overall game mechanics and the game code, nothing also says that someone should go invisible when knocking up a certain champion or like dashing into a champion. So there's absolutely no consistency here, meaning that there is no intention. There are other ways to check if a bug is intended or not, of course. If it provides an unbalanced advantage, if it disrupts game balance or allows players to bypass normal gameplay mechanics, then yeah, of course, it is an exploit. You see, features are designed to specifically fit within a game's balance framework, not to break the balance. You could also look at other gameplay mechanics and see if it fits within the logical framework of the game's rules, and well, arguably so, this leasing invisible Q thing isn't really replicated anywhere else. No one becomes truly invisible in League. The question is, of course, do people find this bug fair? I mean, if there's a widespread agreement, debate, or disagreement, then something obviously is felt as cheating or an exploit, since it wouldn't fit logically within the game's balance framework. If the bug isn't even mentioned in the documentation from the devs, you could look at Champion Spotlight, again, the ability descriptions, etc., then it also might not show intent. But if the bug took several years for it to be fixed, how could players know if it was intended or not at the time? And well, the answer to this is quite simple. Priorities. Riot Games, believe it or not, has to prioritize bug fixes. There's a lot, some more game-breaking than others, and as NBI Analytics said perfectly, players often don't think exploits are wrong until a developer explicitly tells them they are. Infamously, you had this particular exploit in the first Destiny game where players stood outside a cave and shot the same enemies repeatedly as they respawned, and at times would run in to grab the loot the enemies dropped. This exploit provided lots of high-level loot, and in turn other players within the exploit began to feel undergeared. The only solution was to exploit themselves, so it kind of created a toxic environment, and the developers of the game had fixed the exploit at some time, but it took a while, which produced the consequences of having the game's economy of rare items being significantly altered, and many players just ended up leaving. League of Legends Code of Conduct clearly states that cheating is a behavior that the community rejects, and it further defines cheating as a third-party exploits, hacks, and bug abuse, and as well as account sharing and account boosting. Bug abuse self-evidently would be using a bug and intentionally using it for your own personal gain. So what exactly is Spearshot's case then? Let's drag it all in. So Spearshot will use this bug for his own personal gain, and this bug abuse always results in an advantage that is substantial. Substantial in this case is opinionated, of course, and the definition of exploits vary. Generally speaking, it seems more plausible to define it for personal gain rather than what Wikipedia does, and Wikipedia's own source for this sentence is also defining exploits as for personal gain rather than using the word substantial. But would using this bug be for personal gain or result in substantial advantage? And I would argue yes. For starters, if he is on blue side, he would instantly get to his base, giving him a significantly better tempo than his teammates and his enemies. He also escapes any and all risk for doing a 7-second recall. One could imagine multiple scenarios of enemies trying to chase him, which in turn delays his recall timer, or it can also lead to death. He could also recall in an area where he is on a ward, which could also result into a delay or death situation, and looking or seeing that Pantheon is recalling on a ward can also provide you information that you can use. In more extreme situations, he has a get out of jail free card by escaping his own death, which could be game changing. For instance, he could have a huge bounty and enemies are unable to chase or kill him. He can also go entirely unpunished for doing a super risky play. What would be a 1-for-1 would rather just become a guaranteed kill with almost zero risk. Take this instance where he ults Serath running to his base, and when Spearshot kills him, he is behind enemy lines, but then he just instantly backs to his base. Or if Spearshot plays on the red side of the map, he can use the exploit to teleport into the enemy's fountain and backdoor the Nexus, which happens instantly and doesn't allow for anyone to recall, let alone teleport to defend in time. This is even worse as there is seemingly no counterplay to this. There is no warning signs of this happening, such as flashing over a wall or moving onto the map, which shows a player's intent of backdooring. And yes, that includes cases of Pantheon ults, as they even have a limited range that one can see on a ward. The issue with Hextech gates is that they are in your own base, and you would kind of have to ward in someone's own base, which is a little bit unlikely, and you could just use this exploit. There is a specific interaction with the Hextech portal where a Pantheon can just press E and then just press the Hextech gate, which means that he will go through the Hextech gate because he's not really taking damage by using his E. Arguably, this is an intended mechanic and I won't really go into why, but in any case, by using that doesn't necessarily mean that you won't die, that you won't be delayed or anything like that. I mean, there are of course cases where the enemies could teleport on a flank, where they could surround you or something like that. It's not always the case where Spearshot knows or has 100% certainty through the fog of war to see where the enemies are located on the map. What Spearshot does is also intentional, as some people argue or alludes to him not doing it intentionally. There is a specific way one needs to do the bug in order for it to go through, or otherwise one would just pass through the portal as one normally does. I won't really go into the technicalities here, but the method of doing it is easily found online. Essentially, teleporting to the blue side's fountain requires a specific way of doing it, which would by extension show intent of doing the exploit. Moreover, can someone really in their right mind sit here and argue that a Hextech portal is supposed to bring you back all the way to the blue side fountain specifically? I mean, nowhere on the official League of Legends wiki or explanations does the Hextech portal say that it's going to do that, or that Pantheon is going to go to the blue side's fountain by using a Hextech. So why do people, including Spearshot, defend what effectively amounts to cheating? There's one answer to this puzzle, and it comes in the form of a psychological concept named neutralizing attitudes. A neutralizing attitude is considered any thought process that serves as a justification or moralization of unethical behavior. This theory came from a study in the 1950s by Sykes and Matza, who studied delinquents, and further was studied in 2013 by Kurasi regarding dishonesty in academic settings and prevention of cheating. There seems to be three types of cognitive dissonance being at play here. Denial of responsibility. If they didn't want me to exploit this Hextech bug, then they'd fix it already. I mean, really, who cares about patch cycles, the time it takes for bug fixing, prioritization? If the exploit exists, it is of course a part of the game. Other forms of this might be that the developers won't fix it, so it's fair game. It's not my fault for ruining your game by using insert exploit here. It's up to them to fix it. I tagged the developers, so they should know about this. They haven't fixed it, so it's okay for me to use it. No one cares. Victim denial. This bug is harmless. No one's experience gets hurt from using this Hextech gate bug. It literally saves only 8 seconds. Besides 8 seconds being a lot in League, I mean, you can ask any junglers and their obsession with optimizing clear speeds, people using this type of rhetoric are very self-centered. I mean, it's not only going to save you 8 seconds, you would also have to move from the position where you are taken through the Hextech gate and then go to a safe spot, or potentially not, which would risk in a delay, and then you would have to recall. All of this goes beyond 7 and goes beyond 8 seconds, and it all impacts your tempo. And what's more is that no one recognizes all of the other plausible scenarios that could unfold, but never did because of this advantage denying anything from even developing. One might just not understand or not even care that this exploit can ruin the game for others, and probably it has done so. You also! Spearshot accuses the Riven has a bug masqueraded as a feature.
Because bro, when a bug's in a game long enough, it's not a bug anymore. People just use it. So how long? Like, what's the time frame? I want to know, what's the time frame? Because if that's the case, Riven's abusing bugs every game. Every Riven in Masters Plus is abusing a bug.
But I am not entirely sure what this means here. Perhaps he's referring to the Riven auto-cancel mechanic, or that Riven can also do the same Hextech trick. In any case, it doesn't really matter since this is another topic if it was about another bug. And just because one champion has a bug, obviously you shouldn't start abusing bugs as well. And if Riven has a bug masqueraded as a feature, then of course it should be called out on. This is just another case of whataboutism. Spearshot also makes other comments in a video he posted recently that requires addressing since they don't really make sense. Doing it for fun. Spearshot claims that he does the bug for fun, which is somewhat fair as he obviously playing around with memes when he does it. However, he seems to be doing it multiple times now whenever the opportunity arises. It seems more intentional and constitutes abusing a bug.
If anyone were to use an exploit, let's say the Nico infinite tower damage bug, okay, but that is a very different exploit. One is giving me a few seconds of time instead of recalling. Like, so one's saving me a few seconds of time, the other one's literally doing a million damage, bro. Then we'd get shit for using it, right? So where's the consistency? Come on, bro! That's not the same! There's a big difference between a tower walking around the map and shooting you for 500 damage a second than this one, bro.
I at one point on Twitter had brought in about a game-breaking Nico bug into the discussion, and I was pondering at what the consistency is here. If we allow one bug to be abused, where does the line stop for other bugs to be abused? What do we allow and not allow to be abused? It just seems a bit weird to just gatekeep some bugs and not, and there's like no consistency here. It is consistent, however, to just abstain or be against bug abusing. The point I was trying to make was not to compare which Spearshot thinks, but rather about asking where the consistency is. Now, my true position on this is that you should probably not do bugs that give you some sort of advantage, but I can totally see doing funny or harmful bugs. For example, that interaction Draven has specifically with Thresh, it just kind of looks funny, and it doesn't do any real harm or any personal gain in a game. The game is winning anyway, so he can do the bug. Just because a game is in a winning possession or in hindsight you won the game does not mean that one should abuse a bug. A game that is winning can also be turned into a loss, but using bugs for personal gain can definitely keep a game in a winning state, especially when doing high risk, high reward plays that turn into a high reward zero risk. And even if you won a game, how could one know at the time that you were winning? Many games get thrown or turned around, so arguing from hindsight seems kind of pointless.
How long does a bug have to be in the game before you say it's not a bug anymore, it's a feature? How long? Because, bro, when a bug's in a game long enough, it's not a bug anymore. People just use it. So how long? Like, what's the time frame?
Again, just because a bug is in the game for a long time does not mean that it is a feature, and by extension, shifting the blame to Riot for you abusing and ruining the game for others is not really a valid excuse. Multiple things go into play as to why this bug is still in the game. Riot might not be aware of it, they might prioritize other bugs, the code to fix this might be really incredibly hard to implement, or it requires more time than the developers initially thought, or maybe even the bug is in process of being fixed. The list and the scenarios goes on, and we simply just do not know, but rather attribute it to Riot didn't fix it, so it's okay. Well, no, it's not really, especially according to Riot's own code of conduct. I mean, to be fair, it also seems like Spearshot also agrees that this is a bug and not really a feature, but regardless thinks it's okay to use the bug for personal gain since it hasn't been fixed yet.
How do they know they didn't intend it? Or no, but like, it's obviously a bug, but there's a lot of bugs, bro. There's a lot of bugs that get used, but because it's been in the game for so long, people are just like, as well, it's a feature now.
So what's essentially happening here is that Spearshot and other community members shift the responsibility of them cheating, you know, abusing a bug, to the developers simply because they haven't fixed it yet, when there could be numerous reasons as to why they haven't, and since they haven't, by some cosmological force of nature, this allows Spearshot and code to abuse this bug and cheat. And when they are called out on this, they say, well, Riot hasn't fixed it yet, so it's okay for me to ruin the game for others. Stop complaining, nerd. Which, to be fair, is some sort of a cognitive impairment if that's the logic one goes by. And their rebuttal to accusations of the bug introducing harm for other players, their response is that, oh well, I'm just saving time, like 5-8 seconds of time. And Spearshot argues more that not only is he saving time, but he also does it when the enemies couldn't catch him, neglecting the fact that there could be very high probability, plausible scenarios of him getting catched or of him being delayed in his recall, and by using this bug, he essentially just destroys the possibility of those outcomes happening entirely. And I think I'm no stranger to say that this happens frequently. Just recently I watched Zukill's stream and this happened to him. Recalled in a close by spot, got chased, which completely stopped his recall. So the argument essentially falls on that we have to trust Spearshot when he does this bug exploit because he otherwise wouldn't do it if he dies, which is of course laughable because there's examples of him doing just that and asserting Spearshot as some moral high character and thus allowing him to do the bug because he's perceived to be a good guy doesn't really make sense to me. And even if this was the case, how does Spearshot know that he can use this bug or not? Does he know what the enemy is planning, what teleports that they have available and their positions on the map? Is he the all-knowing god of League of Legends? So, is Spearshot cheating? Well, according to Riot rules, yes. Bug abusing would constitute that, but I'm curious as to what you guys think. Is it okay to exploit bugs simply because they haven't been solved yet or been made aware of it yet? And well, does it matter? Not really. The new recent patch actually fixed this, and it might be all due to some hot Twitter drama stemming from my shitposting. Norak, a senior quality assurance engineer for Riot Games, replied to my Twitter post writing, "I took this personally." And when he wrote this, I was actually curious if this bug was getting fixed in the next patches, and I was kind of looking at it, and lo and behold, it really happened. Zach, the Challenger Riven player, applauded Spearshot for his work and admitted that he was going to miss this mechanic slash feature, although it clearly is now confirmed to be unintended and a bug, but I mean, whatever, I guess. And Spearshot, he memed this all, of course, in a fun manner, but in any case, I guess this solves the age-old question of whether this was a bug or an intended mechanic.